Right. Good evening. Thank you to those of it for joining us this evening. My name is Michael, and I am workshop coordinator for the Reading Town Meal. Due to the pandemic this year, we are running these workshops as webinars instead of live in Forbury Gardens, where Reading Town Meal is usually held. This is the third webinar which we are running this week. So and there's two remaining, so please see the Reading Town Meal website workshops page for information about them. We are recording this webinar and it will be uploaded to the Reading Town Meal YouTube channel. Also, there's a video from another part of University of Reading about We Value Food, which will also be added onto the YouTube channel. If you have any comments, you'll be sent an email in the next day or so with an email address to email any comments in. If you have any questions during or at the end of the presentation, please use the chat function or Q&A function to send in your questions, please, and they'll be picked up at the end. So I'd like to welcome Simona and Natalia from the University of Reading, and they will be talking about from waste to value, how to tackle food waste. So I'd like to hand over to Simona to start.
Yes, hi. I think I'll just start sharing my screen, probably makes sense. Okay, can you all see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Good stuff. Good. So yeah, thanks, Michael, for inviting us. It's a pleasure for us to give you a little bit of an introduction about this course that we have developed. So from waste to value is basically the title of a MOOC that we have developed together with Natalia. I will just go through the first introductory slide to explain to you a little bit how the course itself works. And basically, it's a free course, so everybody can sign up. It's completely free to join. You don't have to pay anything. This is the link there, so you can basically it starts on the 16th of November, but you can sign up anytime, and then you can get basically reminders. And the idea behind this was that we had some interest at the University of Reading to obviously do something useful that would concern food waste, and we joined up with a company called Rethink Resource. So the person there in the middle, Eva, she works for Rethink Resource. They're based in Switzerland. They're a startup. So we will see a little more about what this company does later on, because we have a video. And then in terms of myself, I'm a senior research fellow at the University of Reading in the School of Agriculture, Policy and Development. And then, well, Natalia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Natalia. I am working at the University of Reading, and I am involved in EAT food projects. So I've been working in this, the content of this course and another course. So let's see what do you think about this one?
Perfect. I think at this stage I will just move my video because I'm worried that it might interfere with the presentation. So I'll just stop sharing my video. And so I'll just continue onto the course to say that basically it's structured in 3 weeks. So the first week is more introductory, it's more about what food waste is. It gives you a little bit of guidelines and definitions. And then second week and third week are more about action. So the second week is about making changes at home and in your community. And then week third is then about making changes at the national level, at retailer level, and so on and so forth. So hopefully there will be I don't think we'll take the whole 45 minutes, so hopefully there will be plenty of time for questions. And please feel free to use the chat box to send any questions or comments you might have. Okay, so we'll start with week one, and we'll talk about some definitions, as I said. We'll start with some quizzes first. So we just want to get an idea of what you think of this. So what percentage of food never gets eaten worldwide? You can give your answer, A, B, C, or D, in the chat box. And Natalia is monitoring the chat box, so she will tell us when in about a minute's time. We'll give you about a minute to do this, and she will let us know which one is the most chosen option.
So thank you for your answers. I think most of people are right, and we will reveal the answer now. And it's actually 30%. So if
yeah, it's interesting, yeah, because Natalia, I think we have some optimistic people, but a lot of pessimistic, saying it's 50%. So people think worse than it is. So it's interesting. Well, again, this stat is from 2011 from FAO, saying that about a third of all the food that we produce in the world is lost. Obviously, this is a very big number, but at the same time, it's much different if you think about each of the different countries involved. So okay, we'll continue then on to the next quiz, which is coming now. So where do you think most food goes to waste? We have option A, on farms, option B, at processing, option C, supermarkets, or option D, in restaurants and at home. Again, you can use the chat box.
So I think most people are saying alternative D, in restaurants and at home.
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, it changes a lot. But mainly, when we talk about the European stats, we say that mostly is in restaurants and at home. We say about 5% actually, which is a big number. At the same time, it also means that we have the power really to change things if we want, and we hopefully will be able to give you some tips. And the last, yes, there is this bit about the production and processing, retail, and food service. This is just to basically give you the distinction between food loss and food waste. So basically, we use both as a way to describe a decrease in quantity and or in quality of food, which happens along the food supply chain. However, we do distinguish between food loss and food waste, because food loss is considered more the loss that happens during the primary production, so in farms, for example, and during food processing, for example, while food waste is what happens more at a retail level and a food service and household level. So it's both, basically they're both waste, it just happens at a different stage in the food supply chain. And then, yes, food waste actually 70%, retailer and food service. Then the last quiz before we move on. So which food do you think, when it's wasted, represents the biggest waste of energy? So you have option A, bread, B, poultry, C, corn, and D, beef. Let's see what you think about this one. So some people are really 100% sure of their answer.
So slightly more people is saying alternative D. Other ones are split between the other alternatives.
Yeah, there is a lot of D's definitely, and some A's as well. Some people think bread. The reason why it's actually beef is because obviously when you in order to have beef, obviously you have to feed the animal, which means that obviously you have to not only feed the animal, you have to put a lot of energy, a lot of water, a lot of land, a lot of resources. So really, when we do waste a product like beef, and also ruminant is also one of the least efficient animals in transforming feed into food. So that's why between beef and poultry, for example, beef is definitely worse than poultry, because poultry is more efficient. It produces food quicker, let's say. And then, yeah, bread is definitely, we will discuss bread as well as part of our MOOC, but it's not bread because in a way the resources that are into the beef production are much more. So when we waste beef, we do waste much more than the other ones. So I hope that was interesting, and it sounds like many people already were on the spot with the answers. So we'll continue on to some definitions. As we said on the first week, it's more about giving the framework and the definitions. So this is the food waste hierarchy. I don't know if you've ever seen this triangle before, but basically what it's trying to explain very simply is that most of our effort should be really to keep food as food. So it should be preventing food waste at source. If that's not possible, then we should move on to try to feeding people with that food. Then if that's not possible, we should move down the triangle and we should use it for animal feed, for example. Then only after that, we move on to recycling. So things like anaerobic digestion, composting, and only after that, incineration, and after that, we move on to disposal. So the idea is to always go to the top of the chain, because that's where the most value is. So obviously there is more value into feeding people than composting, or more value into feeding animals than incineration, for example. So it's a good way to always remind ourselves that our effort should always be to get back on top of that triangle and always be preventing rather than recycling or disposing, really. Natalia, at any stage, if you want to, come in, please do. Okay.
Yeah, just to add that dispose adds another negative effect, because we are also disposing, when the food goes to landfill, it releases methane, and this is a toxic gas to the environment. So if always good to prevent and to keep food into the top of this triangle rather than disposing the food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right, I forgot that. Thanks. So we'll move on to the other concept, really, which is the concept of linear economy. So this is what we currently, most of us really do. So we get these natural resources, we take them, we them into something, so we manufacture something, then we use it, and whatever we can't really use, we dispose of, and that obviously turns into a lot of waste. So the idea is to basically turn into a circular economy. So circular economy means that, you go again from your production to your consumption, but then you get to waste management. And that means that you try to make an effort to basically reduce the amount of waste that you produce, and you make an effort to bring that food back into the loop of your economy, and therefore you minimize waste. So I think a lot of companies now are getting more and more into this framework, and they're getting better, are being more circular and wasting less, and thinking about how can we reuse our resources rather than throwing them away. So as an example, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we have this company called Rethink Resource, and they are a startup based in Switzerland, and they are very active in this area. So in this video, you will be able to see an example of what they do.
Food waste is a very big challenge that we all have to tackle together. there's a lot of waste material being generated that just goes to waste, that doesn't find any high-value applications.
Everything is produced in a very linear way. You make it, you use it, you throw it away.
We're fighting for the future of food by eliminating waste and valorizing side streams. By side streams, we mean every product that is leaving the factory but is not the main product. Some of the most common side streams we work with are actually from the milling industry or food processing industry.
These industries usually used to be very separated, are now or have to work now together.
Our platform Circado that we're developing
It's a digital platform that allows companies that produce to trade their side streams.
We have worked with Swiss Mill on valorizing their side stream brand that is being reused as a substrate for mushrooms. Eucalyptus mushroom in Switzerland. We want everyone to perceive waste as valuable materials, thus finding new applications in different industries.
We want to move to get our customers to a circular approach.
The circular economy offers the perfect answer. It is a model that can be implemented to pay business on a profitable basis, but offers sustainable solutions to every producing company.
Okay, so this was a quick introduction to, rethink resource. I'll pause it. And it would be interesting if you want to comment on onto the chat box. Do you think more companies should do this? And is this something you've seen, for example, here in the UK? It would be quite interesting to see your view on this. And we'll move now on to week 2, which is probably the more interesting for people in general, because it's about making changes at home, really, and in the community. Hopefully, the more useful for you guys. In terms of how can we help, I'll start with talking about planning. I mean, the idea is, to always have a list in general, and to go to your supermarket or to the place where you usually shop with a list, just because it's you're less likely then to be distracted and then to be throwing random things in your shopping basket that you weren't planning. Some people, for example, don't like the idea of making a list, and maybe they just prefer to take a picture of your own fridge and look at that. I mean, I think it has happened to everybody. You go out and you buy a bag of carrots. You remember that you already have carrots at home, so it's just about planning it properly. Natalia, you want to continue with the storage?
Yeah, for smart storage, it's always good to know where is the best place to store your food, so it will be kept fresher for longer. For example, if we keep apples in the fridge, they will last around more than 2 weeks. And we should always check the fridge temperature that should be set below 5 degrees Celsius. So it's always good to know, and there are lots of websites, and we will share at the end, for example, Love Food, Hate Waste. They have a list about all the foods and the best way to keep them, either in the fridge or in the freezer or in the cupboard. So have a look to this website.
Definitely, yeah. And the other important thing is keeping an eye on dates. I don't know if you already do this. In general, keep an eye on what you have in your fridge, and then things like chicken or meats. You can use your freezer. You can be a little bit more creative and put these things away to reuse at a later stage. I also like, to be honest, to put a little list I have in my freezer onto the freezer, because otherwise I forget what I have in there. I tend to just throw things in there and then not remembering. So I think it's a good idea to have that list updated every time you put something in or you take something out.
By cooking wisely, here we mean if you cook the right amount of food, we're less likely to throw away food. However, if you want to batch cooking, make sure that you have a plan for this leftover food. For example, cooking at lunch at the next day, or freezing this food. And it's always good to serve small portions and then come back for seconds, rather than scraping the excess of food from the plates into the bin.
Yeah, definitely. And I also like the idea of mentioning the concept of nose to tail or root to fruit. So try to use as much as possible the whole of your carrots or the whole of your or chicken if you can, for example. I mean, I know in terms of vegetables, one thing I do sometimes is, I keep all the peeling, especially if you have, organic vegetables, you can keep all the peelings, like, carrots, onions, or, stalks of celery. You can, put them in a bag in the freezer, and when that bag becomes full, then you can just take it out and make some stock. Or, in terms of chicken or beef, I like to just buy, the cheaper cuts, and try to use the whole animal, in a way to be as well more respectful in a way if you do use meat. Yeah, leftovers as well are important. I mean, be creative again. Reuse them for the following day for lunch, or throw them in the freezer. Just don't. I think if you plan it properly, if you don't cook too much, then you shouldn't have really too many leftovers either.
Yeah, it's always good to learn when food goes bad, because there is always confusion about best before and use by dates. So best before date when the manufacturer guarantees that the properties of this food, like color, smell, and taste, will be retained up to this date. So if you have a product that after the best before date has expired, you don't have to throw away this product. And instead, it is advisable to trust your own and check whether the food is still good to eat.
Yeah, definitely. I always make the example of yogurt. I mean, yogurt has a use by, so in theory you shouldn't really have it afterwards. But I mean, you can, if you have a yogurt a couple of days after, you probably find it's a little bit more, but there's still good bacteria in there. It's very unlikely that it would seriously harm you. And then the last 2 points, I probably discuss them together, is about growing your own and recycling food waste. I mean, growing your own, again, ideally, if you have an allotment. I was lucky this year to get an allotment here in Lower Early. So I started doing this. But even at home, if you have a little bit of space, there's a lot of things you can do on a small scale, things like, pea shoots or microgreens, things like that. It doesn't take a lot of space. Or even herbs. They're quite expensive to buy, but you can actually keep some pots at home. About recycling food waste, I mean, I know that in Reading still the process hasn't started of collection of food waste, which is a shame. But I'm based in Lower Early, so that goes with Wokingham Council, and they do collect my food waste, so that's great. So why not doing that? In terms of community, Natalia, do you want to talk about the apps?
Yeah, there are several apps where you can either shop or share your food. For example, Too Good To Go is they have food from leftovers from restaurants or shops, so we can buy food at a discounted price. And then Olio and Karma, these apps allow us to share food with our neighbors. And I think Karma, they also have, by Karma, we can buy food at a discounted price. And another way is to, sorry,
Go ahead,
to donate food to charities and food banks, and also by community fridges. Community fridges are places where the surplus food is shared with the local community. And in the UK, there are around 80 fridges, and there is a website where you can check if there is a community fridge in your local area. And this image actually is from the community fridge at Reading that is called New Beginnings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's great because I mean everybody can go in there, and some food. If you have extra, you can pick up some food, and that's that's what is there for. In terms of the apps, they're really useful. I mean, the Too Good To Go, for example, in Reading, there is some chains. For example, you can get big trays of sushi from Yo Sushi at the end of the day, and normally they would cost like £10, but by the end of the day you get them for like £2.50 or £3.50, something like that. Just because they can't really resell them the following day, so it's also a bargain. Olio and Karma is actually similar to Too Good To Go, while Olio is more about if you want to share things yourself. So you might have a bunch of bananas you want to offer to the community, and people can pick it up from your home. And even with the COVID and the social distancing, it still works quite well because you can still leave things out of your door without having contact with people. So it's quite nice. Good. So I think this video is about an example again of how you can make a change at home and in your community. I think it talks about bread.
99.8% of UK households buy bread, the equivalent of 11 million loaves being sold every single day. An estimated 40% of bread produced every year is wasted in the home. There's so much that can be done to stop this monumental amount. The easiest way for all of us to make a positive change is in the home, the point at which bread is left to go mouldy or stale. There's a reason why we love bread so much. Instead of consigning loaves to the bin, you can freeze them, toast them, bake them, crumb them, hydrate them, even make a bird feeder. Of course, you can reduce leftovers in the first place too. For example, by planning meals or simply buying half-size loaves. Apps like Olio let us share food with neighbours in our community, and social media channels connect us to projects or initiatives such as community fridges and to be redistributed throughout our community where it's most needed. Do you know what initiatives are running in your local area?
Okay, yeah, so that was an example of bread and what you can do in terms of using it at home or sharing it. And it would be, interesting if you can comment on the chat box if you've ever used food sharing technology, and if you haven't, then would you, now that you know, or if you have used it, how have you found it? And we'll continue on to week 3, and week 3 is about making changes at the national level, at the retailer level. So we'll start with the national level. So this is just to basically show the difference that is there really between countries in the EU, for example. So we know that France was really the first country to ban supermarkets from throwing away food. Now they're obliged to donate food to charities. In Italy, a similar system came into place, but they also give incentives to retailers, which is quite good. And in the UK, there is a voluntary agreement between retailers and charities. But probably I wonder now if that is enough, and if more could be done in the UK as well by making the laws a little bit more severe, like in France or Italy.
I will add here, Simona, that we talked to the organization that run this scheme in the UK. So if you are interested to learn more about the results, have a look to their interview in week 3. So the aim here is to cut the food waste at least by 1/5 in 10 years. And for this, all the major supermarkets and food manufacturers have to report to this organization. But yeah, it's interesting that it's only a voluntary agreement and there is no legislation yet.
Yeah, exactly. So still some work to do, definitely, in the UK. So we'll move now on to retailer standards. So again, it's a little quiz in a way. If you can add in the chat box, what do you think is wrong with the sugar snap peas on the right compared to those on the left?
Do you think that the inside is perfectly fine? Probably it's just the shape.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of waste-conscious people say nothing. It's obviously, yeah, it's just slightly different in terms of the color, the shape, the length is slightly different, and unfortunately, the one on the right will be rejected, and they will not reach our table, and the one on the left, they will get it to our supermarkets. And this is all down to the cosmetic standards. We have a slide here showing this. So, you know, the produce can be rejected for so many different reasons. It could be size, it could be shape, it could be color, even skin marks. And, you know, in the picture you see here, there's obviously like some really, really wonky one, like you see the carrots. But sometimes, you know, things get rejected for absolutely the most minute problem, even like a blemish or a slight difference in color that makes them a complete reject. And do you want to add something here, Natalia?
Yeah, there is an organization called Feedback, and they in their report they have done a scorecard, and they have a rating system for all the supermarkets in the UK. So if you are interested to know which supermarket in the UK performs best, you can go to their website or have a look that into our course. But this organization, they think retailers can do a lot more about this. So yeah, they should really report about the standards, and yeah, there's so much to be done about this.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that a lot of retailers have come under pressure really from press because of all these huge amount of waste. So some have started to launch these wonky badge ranges, these boxes, widening specs, but definitely there's still a massive amount of food that is still not reaching our tables for some reason. So yeah, could be done. Okay, so we want to show you now a video which is about a new technology. We want to know, you know, what you think about this technology, if you've seen it before, and if you would like to see this in the UK. Again, you can comment on the chat box after you see the video.
So for a long time, I looked at the retail business, and I knew how to create more sales. I worked for the retail industry, and I knew that I can use dynamic pricing to create more sales. And in some point, I wonder about food waste. 40% of the food never gets eaten, and I tried to think, what can I do with that? And after a while, I came with the idea of wasteless, because it doesn't make sense to go to the supermarket and then to pay the same price for a cheese that expires in 2 days or in 7 days. So we realized that if we reduce the price, we can actually expedite old expiration date products from the shelf outside.
Okay, so this was a new technology, as mentioned, and it's very similar to what retailers do nowadays in the UK with the yellow stickers. It's just that, you know, instead of having to put these stickers like 2 or 3 days on the product, you know, everything is done automatically. So it will be quite interesting to see a technology like this trialed in the UK as well. I think it has already been trialed in with very good results. And in a way it allows consumers to decide, you know, if I know I'm going to cook something tonight and eat something tonight, I can, you know, get a bargain and pay less for this. But if I want to buy something ahead of time, because I know that, you know, in 5 days time I'm going to have some people for dinner, then, you know, I can buy something with a longer shelf life. So it's quite smart.
Yeah, Simona, actually there was a study from the University of California, and they tried the effect of wasteless in a retailer in Spain, and they found that the food waste was reduced by 30% in 5 years.
Wow.
And even the profit was increased by 6%. And it was interesting that they found that about 2/3 of the consumers, they chose the discounted price instead of the listed price. So very interesting results.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, food waste reduction of 30% is amazing, and, you know, profit increase, it's amazing. So it sounds like a good compromise for everybody. So I think we'll move again on to some tips. I think free shop planning, I think we already mentioned this, is really about, you know, making a list, sticking to the list, try not to, you know, let other things that are not on the list drop in your trolley. You want to comment on buying what you need, Natalia?
Yeah, if we only buy the quantity we need, we are less likely to waste food. And it's always good, if possible, to use a basket instead of a shopping trolley, because we will be likely to buy less.
Okay, fair enough. And it's heavier to carry around, so you want to hurry up then.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the buy one get one free offers. I mean, definitely they're very handy if it's an ambient product, and I have to say I do use them. But I think on fresh produce they can be a bit tricky, because sometimes you end up buying 2 bags of spinach when you know that you're only going to use one anyhow. So you end up buying 2 but throwing away 1. And about buying locally and in season, definitely it makes sense. It should also be cheaper, because there should be more availability of it. I know that in Reading there are a couple of farmers markets. There's one in Reading in Great Knowley Street. There's also one in Wokingham. There's also a little shop called the Co-op shop, just in the north, and there you can buy kind of loose food, so it's quite handy.
And also, if we buy local, this means that the supply chain will be shorter. So this limits the likelihood of spoilage and damage during transit. Therefore, it's a very good way to reduce food waste in this way.
Yeah, it's correct, and it's actually you have the contact as well with the person who produced that particular food. I think once I went to the farmers market in Reading, and there was the guy that had the beehives, and he was selling his own honey, and it's nice. You can have a chat with the guy, and he can tell you exactly about how he produces his own product. So it's you develop a relationship as well. And I think I'll talk about the last 2 points together. Shopping for imperfect food. I think we already mentioned, the wonky veg. Try to buy those in the supermarket, because they're way cheaper, and they're not really that imperfect or that wonky. I think Morrison's, Aldi, they all have ranges, and for example, the peppers in Aldi, they're a real bargain. But they also do courgettes and things like that. They're perfectly fine. I don't know how many of you are aware of the concept of upcycled foods. This is something we will discuss in the next slide. Basically, it's basically a way to use foods that otherwise would have gone to waste, and they're basically reused to make new foods. So an example to explain this a little bit clear in a more clearer way is the one of spent grains. So for example, you make your beer. To make your beer, you produce spent barley, for example, or spent wheat or whatever, and then what you can do normally, I think this product right now is either thrown into landfill or is used as animal feed. But again, we could upcycle this. We could bring more value into the food chain, and we could transform these into cereal bars, into pretzel, into crisps, and things like that. So this is an example. Another example is, for example, bread. And this leads into the last video really that we have for today, and then we can open up to question. And it's nice again if you could say, what you think of these products, and whether you would support such products, and if you already buy them, for example.
44% of all of Britain's bread is going to waste, and that has to be stopped. Our mission is to save as much of that unsold bread as possible, and instead turn it into great tasting beer. We get bread that is day fresh but hasn't been sold in bakeries, and also the crusts or the heel of the loaf that sandwich manufacturers don't use in their sandwiches. And ideally, we wouldn't be wasting this bread in the first place, but right now there is so much bread being wasted that even the charities feeding the hungry simply can't use it all. We think toast ale is the best thing since, oh, you know.
So yeah, that's an example of how you can, transform bread into beer. And as the Tristam in the video said, it's not just real bread that comes from bakery. It's actually, the ends of the bread that come from all of those factories that produce the sandwiches for retailers. So there is a huge amount of bread that is actually fresh. It's just the ends of the bread that they can't use for sandwich making, and that is just thrown away. It's huge amounts, and only a tiny little bit is used for toast ale. But again, it's an initiative, and it's interesting. So yeah, let us know in the chat box what you think of this, whether you would support it, whether you already do, and if there's other examples of upcycled foods that you do use. And I think that's it from our side. We just want to thank you for your attention, and obviously we're here to answer any questions you might have.
So everyone is, if you can use the chat box, please, to make your questions. Yeah, we'll share the website of the course. So it's a free course. You are welcome to join. And this course will start on 16th of November.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be running until the end of the year. And the course lasts 3 weeks, and it's about 3 hours per week. But you can complete the activities anytime you want, and either in your laptop or phone.
Okay, sounds like we have some questions coming.
So Christina is asking, what do you think about the cultural barriers are for us all to reduce waste?
I think there's definitely, I don't know what you think, Natalia, because obviously neither of us are British. I mean, I'm Italian and Natalia is from Chile. So when we built this course, we really discussed in a way the cultural differences and how that has an impact. I mean, I come from especially, I mean, it's a culture where, I grew up seeing my grandma cooking, my mom cooking, and, really zero waste from the very beginning. I was trained since I was a child. So definitely, I think it must make a huge difference. I mean, I don't know if there are many studies on this, but I think it's fascinating. I think if you see this done in your family and if you grow with this, I think it just comes natural to you. You don't really think about wasting food because it's just not it's just not in your mind. Is it the same for you, Natalia? I mean, in your culture?
Yeah, my culture is very similar. We make most of all the food in general, but I think the newer generations probably, maybe sometimes we are not using all the leftovers or maybe the offcuts of them. So it's a good way, I think, to try to encourage young people to cook and try different things. And it also, I think, the of the country, the more developed the country, food waste tends to be higher in retail or in households as compared to other countries. In developing countries, food loss is higher because they don't have the technologies to gather all the crops from the farms, for example. So that is why I think it's been difficult in the European Union to come together with a law about this. And I think there are a lot of efforts that they are doing now. And I think probably we will have something in the next years about this. So it should really have, we should really have a law about this in the European Union and probably tailored for each country.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of it, apart from being it a cultural thing, I think a lot of it has to do as well with the value of food. As we live in a fast food society, and a lot of people, they just don't, just think, what's the problem in me throwing away, half of a burger or half of my salad? Food is so cheap, it's so easy to get food. So why should I worry about things? So definitely, I think culture and your upbringing does make a difference.
Simona, there are other questions about, for example, why there is no food collection at Reading.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I see this. I have it in front of me. I think probably Michael is the, the better person to explain this. I think there are plans to launch it. I think they've just been delayed, from what I know, because before I was living in Reading, so I know that that it still hadn't launched. But now, since I moved to Wokingham, they have it already running. So
Simona,
yeah.
Who's this? Christina made a comment that the Reading Council food waste scheme has just started for some people, and that's first collection is next week, but the
Okay.
rollout because of COVID has been pushed back.
Okay.
Next year sometime. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's earlier in the next year. So
Okay.
Reading, it's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, so fingers crossed it will start soon. It definitely makes a difference. I can see one just now question now. Well, not really a question, a comment. Health and safety laws has prevent the shops from donating leftover food. Yes, exactly, and that's that's the legislation issue. I mean, I used to work for the food industry, and at the end of the day, we used to have huge bags of rice that we would throw away just because there was a tiny little hole in it, so we couldn't sell it, and couldn't really give to charity because we couldn't take the responsibility that if those people had used that bag of rice and something had happened to them, then they could have claimed it on us. So in a way, that was a couple of years ago now. So hopefully things have changed and there's more collaboration. But a lot of people, a lot of businesses, they just prefer to throw food away rather than having to deal with the possible issue of somebody being sick or something like that. So I think now the laws are slowly changing.
Yeah, there are other comments, for example, about imperfect food that tends to give the impression that it's poor quality or produced under poor conditions. And generally, I think if we buy this food, we give a signal to retailers that we are accepting this. They're not perfect. So if normally this food is perfectly inside, has a food full of flavor and is still nutritious. So we should really think about how food looks like, and if we think that that is good, we should buy this food.
Yeah, definitely. And I see that, Malcolm is saying hygiene with some of these solutions might worry people. Malcolm, are you referring to upcycled foods? Because in that case, I mean, obviously, if you make a new food from a byproduct or from a waste food, then obviously you still have to go through the proper legislation to make sure that you sell that. What is the best route for small businesses to access to wonky and surplus food for upcycling? So in terms of the best route, best platform for small businesses, I think it depends a lot on the network that you're in. There is this website called Feedback, and where basically they put together all the producers with people that potentially could use it. So there are a lot of these new platforms. Also, Rethink Resource, which is that company that is working with us to develop the course, they also put people who have leftover food with people that could possibly do something with it. So sometimes it is about just linking up people that have different byproducts to make sure that they add value to this. Amrita is saying, yeah, language has to change. Definitely, that's something we will discuss in the course if you join it. There is definitely a limitation with this best before and use by, and a lot of people still don't really get the difference.
Ask if anyone has any tips for reducing food waste that we didn't mention. But well, in the course, we will be asking other learners if they have any tips. They will be sharing this in the comment section, so we can learn from each other about the best ways to reduce food waste.
Yeah, I'm going back into the comments and seeing Patricia is saying the Risk Shop open today, offering to bring your own containers for food. Yes, definitely, that's another interesting thing that is happening in Reading. Shopping Caversham, yes, is the True Food Co-op, yes. Farmers Market. Yeah, another interesting comment from Patricia. I'm just going back into the comments regarding wasteless, the technology that we saw. And she's saying, how do you know that the food waste in the Spanish experiment did not end up as food waste in the household? Because in a way, you know, when the supermarket sells food, then how do you know that actually that food is not really going to the bin? I don't know if they actually monitored that, to be honest. We would have to go back and check those results. But I suppose, yeah, if you buy closer to the end of its life, then either you're quite smart and you cook it straight away, or you freeze it, or as you say, it goes to waste. So yes, it is important not to throw the responsibility of the food waste just onto the consumer. So I do agree with that. That comment is quite intelligent, yeah. More comments at the end. Let me check. Yeah, I'm making a lot of soup. Patricia is saying definitely soups are a great way to clean your fridge. I absolutely agree with that. Overripe bananas, yes, there's plenty as well of recipes you can make with you know, muffins and banana bread and things like that. Or even, yeah, if you chop them up and you freeze them, you can use them to make smoothies. Make compost, yeah, if you can, why not? The apple pressing group sounds interesting. I didn't know about that. Request surplus apples from local residents. Yeah, there are a lot of apple trees in the Reading areas, I realize.
That's true. I've been regrowing spring onions or celery and also lettuce stock. So actually, if you keep them in water and change it every 3 days, they start regrowing.
Okay. So you buy less spring onion.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, it looks like obviously the people who you know, attended this were obviously already, you know, interested in the topic, already aware. So that's great to hear. Obviously, I think everybody can still improve, can make changes, small changes that can make a difference. Obviously, we hope that you know, with this MOOC, we will be able to, you know, raise the interest as well in people that are not as good or as determined to lower their food waste. So fingers crossed. Yeah, exactly, Malcolm. It's a good question. I mean, I suppose if you sign up already for a course like this, it already means I already have an interest. But for the rest, I think that it has to be a matter of you know, try to be a good citizen and you know, have that social responsibility. And again, the law, the legislation. Probably, I think in some of the Nordic countries, they're very, very, very thorough with the way you know, you for example, you sort out your bins. They fine you if you don't recycle. They you know, if you don't split your food waste from the rest, you know, you're not seen as a good citizen and you're punished in any possible way. So I don't know, I'm not saying that punishing is the way forward, but you know, we can all think about I think our town councils and our governments, I think they could put forward some original ideas to help. Is it a free course? Yes, it is a free course. Anybody can take it, Patricia. It's been offered to schools. I mean, we do our advertising on social media. We have paid our marketing company to do that. Obviously, if you can, you know, share this course with as many people as possible, it would be great. Because
And also, a good way, I think, is sharing the knowledge. So people taking the course can speak to their family members or neighbors about initiatives or things they can do. So and also another way is to teach children to cook or do things with leftovers. So
yes.
that is a good way, I think, to introduce these topics to children.
Yes, definitely. And we go back to that upbringing and to the culture and to showing, the value of food to children. Definitely, I think that's a very valuable proposition.
Simona and Natalia, I just want to interject there briefly to, because of ending the recording, to say thank you very much to you for your very interesting and informative presentation, and say that will be uploaded to YouTube in due course. So thank you very much for